Welcome and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. I am your own personal sales maven. I'm here to offer you tips and strategies and techniques to master your sales conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about how to answer the "what's your price" question without losing the sale or breaking rapport with the person asking it. All right. Have you ever had a prospect just call you out of the blue or send you an email and that's the first thing they ask for? What's your price? How much do you charge for this? This came up in a coaching call recently. And I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it made me think I don't think I've done a just very specific podcast that is that first question, what's your price and how to respond? Because one of the things I have found over the last 12 years of working with entrepreneurs is that often it can feel a little abrasive. It can have the business owner start to like feel like the hair on the back of their neck is standing up a little bit. They feel a little annoyed. They feel like now I've got to prove my value because the first thing that's coming at me is this, what's your price? Question. So, I'm going to give you some language. I'm going to give you some suggestions on how to handle these particular situations so that you stay resilient, that you keep the rapport intact, and frankly, that you increase your chances of closing that sale because isn't that the whole goal, right? So, we're going to talk about that today. Now, here is the biggest mistake that people make when they get the "what's your price" or "how much do you charge" for that question. They say, it depends. And my response is, it depends is never, and I don't use the word never very often when I am coaching clients, but it is never, it depends to this question. And even if you're thinking to yourself right now, but Nikki, it does depend. I know. And it is never the answer to the question, what do you charge for that? Or how much do you charge for that? Or what's your price? Okay. So when you say it depends, it starts to create mistrust and it starts to shut down rapport because instantly now the other person feels like they need to be on the defensive. And it's just such a big mistake. And I may have shared this story before, but it's probably been a while. So if you're newer listener to the podcast, this may seem new. If you're a coaching client with me, you've probably heard me say this a bunch of times, but I remember one time getting on a call with somebody and I was really interested in what her service was, but I had no context at all from a standpoint of like what the fees would be for this. And so I wanted to get that out of the way as to not waste her time and not waste my time. And so her response to me when I said, what is a typical price range for this type of service? She said, we'll get to that later in the discussion, which immediately let me know that she was not somebody I was going to hire because it did create doubt in my mind about her service, about whether or not she's the kind of person I want to work with. Because when I ask a question, I want a real answer. And we're going to get to that later is not a real answer. As somebody who is very inquisitive and has a lot of questions, I like answers. And when people dismiss them or put me off, my brain cannot focus. Starting to wonder if I need to be diagnosed with something. But that's like, I cannot focus anymore. Like, you've lost me. So it depends, never the answer. Okay. So what is the answer? Even if you're thinking to yourself, but I have no way to answer that question, I don't have enough information, then this is what you say. You say, projects like yours or projects like this or products like this typically range between X and Y. So you give a range. And when you do that, you're building trust and it positions you as credible. It shows that you're listening, you're going to answer their questions, and you're not you're not like limiting yourself now. You didn't give them a number that you then have to go back and correct later because you gave a range. And I don't care what the range is, just give them a range. Now, one of the things that often comes up when I coach around this particular topic is people want to know, well, what if I'm not having a live conversation? What if this is a conversation that they just sent a contact form through my website or they just sent an email to me. So I'm going to give you some language around that before I move into some other ways to kind of like redirect in a live conversation. So in an email or in a written type of response, if the question is, what's your price? You want to, build rapport. So I always like to say something like, thank you so much for your message and your interest in working together. Projects like the one you described typically range between X and Y. To give you a more complete answer and ensure you're getting the best recommendation for your situation, would you be open to scheduling a consult call, discovery call, whatever you call it? And then you tell them what's going to happen in that call. Like during this session, we'll talk through the specific things that you're looking for, answer the questions that you have. With your permission, I'll ask you a few questions to determine what is the or to determine what is the best product or service for what it is that you're looking to accomplish, and be able to give you pricing at that point. And then here's a link to schedule a time that works best for you, and you put your link in there, um, and then you issue the invitation. Would you like to go ahead and get that scheduled? Click this link, right, and then schedule the time. So have an answer. Again, giving a range lets the person know, like, oh, this person is taking me seriously. And frankly, if they're just shopping you, then they'll go away if you're not within their range. That's okay too, right? You weren't going to earn their business anyway if if you didn't have something that fit into the price range they're looking for, and that's okay. But show them that respect, answer the question, and then let them know to get a specific answer. Here's how to do that. So, same in a live conversation. So, we're going to redirect after I say, projects like this can typically range between X and Y. And then you're going to say, to give a more complete answer, would you be open to answering a few quick questions? Or would it be okay if I asked a couple quick questions? Most people are going to say yes, right? Now you're leading the conversation. You're now guiding the conversation because you're asking those qualifying questions that allows for you to like get the meat on the bone. Like, what's going on here? What's the situation? What's the right thing to recommend, or what is going to be the scope of this project? And if after that you do need some time to put together a scope or put together a letter of agreement or a proposal for them, that's fine too. And just say, based on everything that you've shared, I have enough information here to put together a proposal for you or a letter of agreement or a scope of, scope of work. And I can send that over to you later today or tomorrow or whatever that is. Can we go ahead and schedule a circle back call to review that and answer any additional questions that come up for you? And then you get a time scheduled. Now, I know that I'm making this sound very simple, and the fact of the matter is, it is. It's just about being prepared and not being defensive is what I'm trying to say. Not being defensive when somebody asks you the question, just being ready for it, because in business, you are going to get this question. So be prepared. And if you feel like, gosh, I'm so annoyed, I'm so sick of that question, I also want to remind you that when somebody is asking you about your price, that is a buying signal. Ding, ding, ding. I always say buying signals. This is where the gravy is. This is where the money is, right? So instead of feeling annoyed by the question, I want you to be thinking like, dang, look at all these buying signals coming my way. Like, reframe this for yourself that this is a positive thing. Okay. And it allows for you to then potentially earn this person's business. That is a real lead. That's, like that these count when people are coming in and asking you about your price. So just remember, it's up to you to stay credible and transparent. And it's not about devaluing your offer. It's not about being defensive, or you don't need to be evasive. And frankly, if somebody asks you and you have like the price, just say, the price for that is this, and then follow up with the invitation, right? Like buying signal, they're asking about price. So, what does it cost to be in the Sales Maven Society, Nikki? The cost of membership is $147 a month. Then I follow up with my invitation. Is that something you would like to get signed up for? Then I wait and I see what they say next. Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, sometimes they say, I have a question. Great. Now we're in a real sales conversation and I'm ready for that. I want you to be ready for it too. All right. So here's my suggestion for you for a takeaway from this particular episode. Practice what you're going to say when you get this question. If the next time you're driving by yourself, like practice saying it out loud. Imagine somebody asks you, what's your price? Or how much is that? What do you charge for that? What are you going to say? And then how are you going to redirect the question? And then the next thing I would say is come up with your three like qualifying questions, your discovery questions when they give you permission to ask a little bit more about their project. What are those three questions that you need the answer to in order to create a scope or a proposal? Now, maybe there's more than three, but having that prepared and being ready, this is what makes the difference. This is what's going to set you apart from all of your competition out there is being ready for your sales conversations, being resilient in those situations and knowing what to do and what to say next. This is the like crux of everything that I teach. And remember, last here is that your job, once you've given a range or once you've gotten the information, and when you're ready to make a recommendation or when you're ready to give the price, that you say the price for that is this, and then you follow up with that closed language. Would you like to go ahead and get signed up for that? Or should we go ahead and get that first session scheduled for you? Or would you like to go ahead and get started on this project together? You issue that closed language. All right. I know this is a short episode. I hope this is helpful. And maybe this is just a reminder for you, or if you're hearing it for the first time, this can make a huge difference. I am wishing you continued success in all that you're doing. Hey, should you know somebody who would benefit from hearing this episode? Would you be willing to share it? Encourage them. Anytime you hear somebody go like, oh, I hate when people ask me the price question, please share this episode. They might find some real power in learning how to respond in these situations. Okay. And be on the lookout for those buying signals. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for listening.